Hello friends. When Aries meets Sagittarius, there's an undeniable spark. Both are fire signs, born under the restless, adventurous spirit of the zodiac. But when we add the Chinese zodiac layers, Aries as the snake and Sagittarius as the goat, the story becomes far more intricate. It's not just two fire signs colliding, it's the calculated charm of the snake crossing paths with the dream-filled gentleness of the goat. At first glance, they seem like natural allies. They share a thirst for experience, a dislike of monotony, and a desire to live fully. Yet beneath the surface, their elemental and animal archetypes shape them in ways that can either blend beautifully or clash dramatically. Let's explore what this pairing looks like in different areas of life. Love. In love, Aries Snake and Sagittarius Goat form a pairing that is as fascinating as it is challenging. At first glance, their connection can appear almost cinematic, two individuals drawn together by an invisible current of intrigue and curiosity. The Aries snake is a creature of mystery, carrying themselves with a poised confidence that rarely gives away the depth of their feelings. This is not someone who rushes into declarations or wears their emotions on their sleeve. Instead, they prefer to observe, analyze, and make their moves with calculated precision. The thrill of the chase is as important to them as the relationship itself, and they often test a potential partner's interest without openly revealing their own vulnerability. The Sagittarius goat, on the other hand, enters love with an open heart and a hopeful spirit. They are capable of deep affection and are often enchanted by the idea of soulmates and destiny. Romantic by nature, they tend to idealize relationships, sometimes seeing them as grand adventures where love will conquer all obstacles. This idealism is both their greatest strength and their most significant risk, because while it allows them to love without reservation, it also leaves them exposed to disappointment if reality fails to meet the dream. When these two meet, the attraction is layered. There is the obvious physical spark. Both Aries and Sagittarius are fire signs, after all, but it's the interplay between snake and goat that creates a deeper pull. The snake side of Aries is captivated by the goat's sincerity, warmth, and gentle creativity. There is something disarming about the goat's openness, a quality that draws the snake out of their guarded shell. Meanwhile, the goat is fascinated by the snake's quiet self-assurance and air of control, sensing a depth and stability that they themselves sometimes struggle to maintain. However, the early stages of this romance are rarely without friction. The Aries snake's instinct to maintain control, to direct the pace and emotional tone of the relationship, can clash with the Sagittarius goat's need for freedom and spontaneity. The goat thrives on the ability to change plans, follow whims, and live in the moment, while the snake prefers a more deliberate and measured approach. This difference can create a subtle tension. The goat may feel they are being gently caged, and the snake may feel their partner is too unpredictable or inconsistent. Yet, if both partners are willing to learn from each other, this tension can become a source of growth rather than division. Over time, the Sagittarius goat can come to understand that the Aries snake's need for privacy and independence is not a rejection, but a deeply ingrained part of their nature, a way of protecting both themselves and the relationship. They can learn to give the snake space without fearing abandonment. Likewise, the Aries snake can discover that the goat's spontaneity is not recklessness but an expression of joy and a desire to share life's surprises. Instead of restricting this energy, the snake can choose to embrace it, letting their partner's enthusiasm refresh their own outlook. In the long term, love between an Aries snake and a Sagittarius goat often becomes a delicate balancing act. It is not the sort of connection where differences simply fade away. Rather, it thrives when those differences are acknowledged, respected, and woven into the fabric of the relationship. This requires patience, empathy, and an ongoing willingness to communicate honestly about needs and boundaries. Another key element in their love life is the way they inspire each other's growth. The goat, with their kindness and idealism, can soften the snake's sharper edges, helping them to trust more deeply and show vulnerability. The snake, with their determination and strategic mindset, can help the goat channel their dreams into reality, offering the stability needed to make lasting plans. Together, they can build a relationship that blends romance with purpose, fantasy with practicality. Of course, the path is not without pitfalls. The Aries snake's emotional reserve can sometimes make the goat feel unwanted or undervalued if it is not balanced with verbal and physical expressions of love. The goat's tendency to dream big without always following through can frustrate the snake, especially if it affects shared goals. These moments, if left unaddressed, can lead to silent resentments that erode intimacy. To keep their love strong, both must practice meeting in the middle. The snake can offer reassurance in ways that speak to the goat's emotional needs, such as open conversations, shared adventures, and gestures that affirm their commitment. The goat, in turn, can show the snake that freedom does not equal chaos, and that flexibility can coexist with loyalty. Ultimately, when Aries snake and Sagittarius goat choose to love with awareness rather than assumption, their relationship can evolve into something rich and enduring. It is not a pairing for those who want an easy, frictionless romance. Instead, it is a love that challenges both partners to grow beyond their comfort zones. The reward for this effort is a bond that feels both exciting and secure, full of passion yet grounded in mutual respect. A love that can weather the storms and still look forward to the sunrise together. Marriage. Marriage between an Aries snake and a Sagittarius goat is a union with the potential for long-lasting stability, but it rarely arrives prepackaged with effortless bliss. This pairing demands attention, understanding, and the willingness to adapt to one another's very different approaches to shared life. The Aries snake often views marriage through a pragmatic, structured lens. To them, it is not simply a romantic continuation of dating but an elevated stage of partnership where responsibilities are clearly defined, respect is non-negotiable, and future plans are discussed with precision. They prefer to know exactly where the relationship is headed, and they treat the commitment with the same seriousness they would a major life investment. The snake's strategic nature means they are constantly thinking ahead, budgeting time, money, and emotional energy to ensure that the marriage remains stable and productive. The Sagittarius goat, however, approaches marriage from a very different emotional and philosophical standpoint. To them, this bond is a living, breathing adventure, one that thrives on mutual inspiration, exploration, and emotional warmth. They value flexibility in the relationship and want to feel that they and their partner are growing together as individuals, not just as a single unit. For the goat, marriage is not a rigid institution but an evolving journey where spontaneity is welcome, and change is not feared but embraced. This difference in mindset can create both attraction and tension between the two. The goat may admire the snake's decisiveness and sense of order, but over time they may also feel stifled if that order begins to resemble a rulebook rather than a guiding framework. If the Aries snake's natural inclination toward control is left unchecked, they may inadvertently turn the marriage into a disciplined routine where every decision must be vetted or justified. The Sagittarius goat, with their love of freedom and tendency to follow their intuition, can begin to feel emotionally constrained in such an environment. They might interpret the snake's desire for structure as mistrust or rigidity, which could lead to emotional withdrawal or quiet resentment. Similarly, from the snake's perspective, the goat's unpredictability might feel like a threat to the carefully laid plans they believe are essential for the marriage's longevity. Yet despite these differences, when both partners are committed to working on the relationship, this marriage can become deeply fulfilling. The goat's innate creativity and optimism can breathe fresh air into the snake's more methodical approach. By infusing the relationship with joy, humor, and unexpected adventures, the goat helps prevent the marriage from becoming overly serious or monotonous. Their warmth can soften the snake's sharper edges, encouraging them to relax and enjoy moments without constantly analyzing the long-term implications. In turn, the Aries snake offers the Sagittarius goat a form of security that is not just material but emotional. They provide a dependable foundation on which the goat's dreams can take shape, helping transform vague aspirations into concrete plans. Where the goat might drift aimlessly or abandon projects midway, the snake offers steady guidance, ensuring that shared goals are not only set but achieved. This complementarity, stability meeting imagination, can become the backbone of their marital success. Compromise remains the cornerstone of this union's survival. For the snake, it means loosening their grip on predictability and allowing for moments of unplanned excitement, trusting that flexibility will not erode the foundation they have built. For the goat, it means accepting the value of boundaries, routines, and mutual commitments, understanding that structure is not an enemy of freedom but a safeguard for the relationship's endurance. When this balance is achieved, the Aries Snake and Sagittarius Goat can create a marriage that is both grounded and exhilarating. The snake learns that not every day needs to be accounted for, that some of life's most meaningful experiences come from detours and surprises. The goat learns that commitment does not mean loss of self, and that within the steady embrace of the snake's reliability, there is space to dream even bigger. Ultimately, marriage between these two is not about erasing differences but about learning to dance with them. The snake leads with careful steps, the goat spins with creative flair, and together they can choreograph a shared life that honors both their natures. It may never be entirely free of friction, but when both partners see that friction as a sign of growth rather than conflict, this union can become one of mutual empowerment, resilience, and lasting affection. Sex. Sexual compatibility between an Aries snake and a Sagittarius goat is a multi-layered experience, rich with potential yet not without its challenges. At its best, their physical connection is charged with passion, curiosity, and a steady undercurrent of mutual fascination. Yet it's rarely the kind of pairing that clicks into perfect harmony from the very first encounter. Both partners approach intimacy from distinctly different angles, each compelling in its own right, but requiring time, trust, and a willingness to adapt before they truly merge into a rhythm that satisfies them both. The Aries snake is a sensualist by nature, but not in the impulsive, immediate way people often expect from Aries. Their snake influence tempers the fiery impulsivity with a deliberate, almost artistic approach to physical connection. For them, seduction is an elaborate dance, one that begins long before any physical contact takes place. They revel in the slow build-up, in the quiet tension that lingers between glances, in subtle touches that spark anticipation. They prefer to cultivate desire in layers, savoring the emotional and psychological foreplay as much as the physical act itself. To the snake, rushing intimacy is like skipping the best chapters of a novel. They want to take their time and experience the full arc of the story. The Sagittarius goat, on the other hand, embodies a more open and enthusiastic approach to sex. For them, intimacy is not only about passion but also about playfulness, exploration, and the joyful expression of connection. They are curious, eager to experiment, and often guided by the emotional tone of the moment rather than a structured plan. The goat thrives on spontaneity. Being swept into the heat of the moment excites them far more than carefully orchestrated seduction. They also view intimacy as an extension of emotional bonding. To them, laughter, tenderness, and shared vulnerability are just as essential as physical chemistry. This contrast in pacing can sometimes create friction. The goat might interpret the snake's measured approach as a form of emotional restraint or holding back, worrying that their partner is not fully engaged or that there is a hidden wall they cannot breach. The snake, meanwhile, might feel that the goat's quick, playful approach lacks the depth and nuance they crave, perhaps even interpreting it as a sign of emotional shallowness, when in reality, it is simply a different way of experiencing passion. The magic happens when they begin to understand and appreciate each other's perspectives. The goat can learn that the snake's deliberate style is not about withholding pleasure but about enhancing it, turning every touch, every kiss, into a heightened experience that lingers long after. The snake, in turn, can discover that the goat's spontaneity is not careless but vibrant, adding an element of surprise and lightheartedness that keeps intimacy from becoming too predictable. Once they find this balance, their sexual connection can evolve into something deeply fulfilling. The snake can guide the goat toward greater depth, helping them slow down, savor the moment, and explore the unspoken communication that happens through prolonged eye contact, deliberate touches, and unhurried movement. The goat, in return, can help the snake break free from overcontrol, encouraging them to surrender to passion in the moment, to let instinct take over without needing to plan every detail. Trust is the essential currency in this aspect of their relationship. Both must feel safe enough to express their desires openly, without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. For the goat, this might mean learning to sit comfortably in moments of stillness, trusting that the snake's silence or slowness is part of their seduction. For the snake, it may mean loosening the reins of control and trusting the goat's natural enthusiasm to enhance rather than diminish the experience. Over time, their bedroom dynamic can become a rich blend of artistry and spontaneity, where each encounter holds both familiarity and surprise. They may find themselves developing private rituals, shared moments of anticipation before intimacy, that become as meaningful as the act itself. The goat's warmth can make the snake feel safe enough to express hidden passions, while the snake's intentionality can make the goat feel truly cherished and desired. In the end, their sexual relationship thrives when they treat it as an evolving conversation rather than a static formula. They will never be a couple that repeats the same script over and over. Instead, they will constantly rewrite their intimate language, blending the snake's precision with the goat's free spirit. This not only keeps the spark alive but deepens the emotional bond, turning physical intimacy into a space where both partners feel understood, satisfied, and deeply connected. Friendship. Friendship between an Aries snake and a Sagittarius goat is often built on a foundation of shared curiosity, mutual respect, and a complementary set of strengths that make their bond both stimulating and supportive. From the outside, they may appear to be an unlikely pair, one reserved and calculating, the other open-hearted and whimsical, but it is exactly these differences that give their friendship its distinctive texture. They are drawn to each other because each offers something the other's natural temperament lacks, and over time, this exchange of qualities becomes one of the most valuable aspects of their connection. Both have an innate appreciation for discovery. Whether it's exploring a new city, trying an unusual restaurant, or diving into a philosophical discussion that stretches late into the night, they thrive on shared experiences that feed their intellect and sense of adventure. The Aries snake approaches these activities with a sense of purpose and a knack for planning. They are the type to research options, create an itinerary, and ensure everything runs smoothly. The Sagittarius goat, meanwhile, brings spontaneity and humor to the mix, often suggesting detours or spur-of-the-moment ideas that can transform an ordinary outing into something unforgettable. In many ways, the snake often assumes the role of the strategic planner in this friendship. They are adept at weighing pros and cons, anticipating potential obstacles, and making sure that any shared endeavor, whether it's a road trip, a creative project, or even just a weekend hangout, goes off without major hiccups. The goat, for their part, is usually more focused on the journey than the destination. They delight in the unexpected and are willing to follow the thread of an idea wherever it leads, even if it veers far from the original plan. This contrast can sometimes lead to minor clashes, but more often it provides balance. The snake keeps things from spiraling into chaos, and the goat ensures things don't become overly rigid or predictable. The emotional tone of their friendship is another area where their personalities intertwine productively. The Sagittarius goat has a way of lightening the snake's intensity. When the snake becomes overly focused on strategy or perfection, the goat can inject laughter and perspective, reminding them that not everything needs to be optimized to have value. In return, the Aries snake offers the goat a sense of grounding. Their calm confidence reassures the goat during moments of uncertainty or self-doubt, providing stability without smothering their friend's independent streak. However, for this friendship to remain healthy, both need to be mindful of certain tendencies. The Aries snake's preference for control can, at times, slip into bossiness. If they dismiss the goat's spontaneous suggestions too quickly or insist on always doing things the right way, the goat may begin to feel undervalued or patronized. The goat must also guard against leaning too heavily on the snake for direction. While it can be tempting to let the snake handle all the decision-making, doing so can create an unbalanced dynamic where the goat feels less like an equal and more like a follower. When they get the balance right, this friendship can be deeply enriching. The snake learns to appreciate the beauty of the unplanned, discovering that some of the most memorable moments in life happen when you set aside the agenda. The goat, in turn, gains a deeper respect for the value of preparation and structure, realizing that a little foresight can enhance, not diminish, the joy of an adventure. In their best moments, they create a dynamic where each friend plays to their strengths while also adopting some of the other's qualities. The goat's buoyant energy can lift the snake's spirits on difficult days, while the snake's strategic thinking can help the goat turn dreams into achievable goals. They share in each other's victories and provide steady support during setbacks, rarely letting differences escalate into conflicts that threaten the bond. Ultimately, friendship between an Aries snake and a Sagittarius goat is a dance between vision and whimsy, planning and improvisation. When both friends respect what the other brings to the table, they create a relationship that is as fun as it is enduring, one where they keep each other grounded without clipping each other's wings, and where laughter and trust form the constant backdrop to every shared adventure. Business. In business, the partnership between an Aries snake and a Sagittarius goat can be a dynamic blend of vision, creativity, and calculated strategy, if they can successfully navigate their differences. When these two join forces in a professional setting, there is significant potential for success, but that potential is often tempered by the need for careful role definition and a deep understanding of each other's working styles. Without mutual respect and clearly defined boundaries, their contrasting approaches to business can just as easily cause friction as they can create synergy. The Aries snake is a natural strategist. They have a sharp mind for identifying patterns, predicting market trends, and spotting opportunities that others overlook. Their methodical nature means they rarely make impulsive decisions. Instead, they weigh risks carefully and act only when the odds are in their favor. Yet this caution is balanced by the Aries fire element, which gives them the courage to act decisively when the moment is right. They are not reckless, but they are bold, able to take calculated risks that can pay off handsomely. This makes them well suited to high-stakes negotiations, long-term planning, and situations where a steady hand is required to steer the ship through uncertainty. The Sagittarius goat, by contrast, approaches business with an open, imaginative mindset. They excel in environments that value innovation, human connection, and adaptability. People are naturally drawn to their warmth, sincerity, and optimism, which makes them exceptional at client relations, team leadership, and public-facing roles. The goat thrives when they can infuse work with creativity, developing fresh marketing concepts, fostering a positive company culture, or finding unconventional solutions to challenges. Unlike the snake, they are less concerned with meticulous long-term projections and more focused on maintaining momentum, morale, and inspiration in the present moment. When their talents are aligned, this pairing can be a formidable team. The snake brings the structural framework and strategic foresight needed to guide a business toward sustained growth. The goat injects that framework with energy, creativity, and a human touch that can make the business not only profitable but also a place where people want to engage, whether as customers, clients, or employees. Together, they can balance profitability with innovation, structure with adaptability. However, the very traits that make them complementary can also be the source of their greatest challenges. The Aries snake's realism can at times border on skepticism, especially when faced with the goat's more ambitious or unconventional ideas. If the snake perceives an idea as impractical, they may dismiss it outright without exploring whether it can be refined or adapted. The goat, in turn, may interpret this as a lack of openness or an unwillingness to take creative risks. On the other side of the equation, the goat's idealism, while inspiring, can lead them to underestimate potential obstacles or overcommit resources. When this happens, the snake may step in to enforce restrictions, which the goat can perceive as controlling or dismissive of their contributions. The key to avoiding these pitfalls lies in clearly defining their roles from the outset. If the Aries snake is given primary responsibility for strategy, financial oversight, and negotiations, they can ensure that the business remains on solid footing and that decisions are grounded in data and long-term thinking. Meanwhile, if the Sagittarius goat focuses on creativity, public relations, and team or client engagement, they can ensure that the business retains a dynamic, approachable, and innovative character. This division of labor allows each to operate in their zone of strength without constantly stepping on the other's toes. Communication is another critical factor in making this partnership work. The snake must learn to present their concerns in a way that doesn't diminish the goat's enthusiasm, framing critiques as constructive feedback rather than outright rejections. The goat, for their part, needs to accept that some level of structure and caution is necessary in business, even if it feels limiting in the short term. When both are able to listen without defensiveness and respect each other's perspectives, they can transform disagreements into opportunities for better solutions. Over time, they can develop a professional relationship that is both resilient and innovative. The snake benefits from the goat's fresh perspectives and ability to see opportunities in unexpected places, while the goat gains a greater appreciation for the value of planning, budgeting, and strategic foresight. In the best-case scenario, the snake's measured approach ensures that the goat's creative ideas are implemented effectively and sustainably, while the goat's openness to experimentation keeps the snake from becoming too rigid or conservative. Ultimately, business between an Aries snake and a Sagittarius goat thrives when they recognize that they are not competing for control but contributing different and equally valuable elements to the same vision. By trusting each other's expertise and honoring their complementary skill sets, they can create a partnership that not only meets financial goals but also fosters an environment of creativity, integrity, and long-term growth. When they strike this balance, they are capable of building something that endures, not just as a business, but as a shared legacy of two very different yet deeply compatible minds working toward a common purpose. Dark sides. Every pairing has its shadows, and in the case of Aries snake and Sagittarius goat, those shadows are not faint. They have the potential to cast long, complex patterns over the relationship if left unaddressed. The core of their challenges lies in the extremes of their personalities, which, while compelling in moments of harmony, can become disruptive when the balance tips too far in one direction. The Aries snake's shadow traits often stem from their instinct for control and their deep-seated need for emotional self-protection. While their caution and strategic thinking can be assets, in darker moments they may use these traits to manipulate situations in subtle ways. They might withhold information, guide conversations toward outcomes that suit their agenda, or set emotional tests for their partner without making their intentions clear. The snake's tendency toward privacy, taken to an unhealthy level, can become secrecy, creating a barrier between them and the goat that erodes trust over time. What feels like necessary self-preservation to the snake can register as coldness or even betrayal to the goat. On the other side, the Sagittarius goat's vulnerabilities lie in their emotional sensitivity and conflict-avoidant tendencies. While they are warm and generous in spirit, they can become evasive when faced with confrontation, preferring to sidestep issues rather than address them directly. This avoidance, combined with their idealistic nature, can lead to passive-aggressive behavior when they feel unheard or trapped. Rather than articulating frustrations, they might express them indirectly, through withdrawn affection, sarcastic remarks, or quietly sabotaging plans. The goat's dreaminess, which is charming in moderation, can also become impracticality, leaving the snake feeling burdened by what they see as a lack of follow-through. One of the most insidious dangers in this pairing is the potential for emotional imbalance. If the snake's dominance goes unchecked, the goat can slowly lose their sense of individuality, adapting too much to the snake's preferences out of a desire to keep the peace. Over time, this self-erasure can lead to resentment and a quiet desperation for freedom. Conversely, if the goat becomes overly dreamy, scattered, or inconsistent in their commitments, the snake may view them as unreliable and withdraw emotionally. This withdrawal, often silent and gradual, can be far more damaging than overt conflict, as it starves the relationship of connection without offering a clear path to resolution. Another dark thread in their dynamic is the feedback loop of insecurity and control. The snake's desire for control can trigger the goat's fear of confinement, leading the goat to seek more independence or act unpredictably. This unpredictability, in turn, can heighten the snake's anxiety and cause them to tighten their grip even further, creating a cycle that is difficult to break without conscious effort from both sides. Communication breakdown is another common hazard. The snake's preference for measured, logical discussion can clash with the goat's emotional, sometimes nonlinear way of expressing themselves. In moments of tension, the snake may come across as dismissive or condescending, while the goat's responses may seem overly emotional or unfocused to the snake. Without patience and empathy, these differences can make genuine understanding feel out of reach. The darker tendencies of this pairing are not inherently destructive, but they require active awareness to manage. The snake must resist the urge to treat the relationship like a chess game, remembering that vulnerability is not a weakness but a bridge to deeper intimacy. The goat, for their part, must learn to confront issues directly, even when it feels uncomfortable, and to temper their idealism with a realistic assessment of situations. When these shadows are ignored, they can accumulate quietly, turning small irritations into entrenched patterns of mistrust, frustration, and disengagement. The relationship risks becoming a performance, one partner playing the role of the steady, strategic anchor, the other the free-spirited dreamer, without the genuine emotional connection that once drew them together. Yet, if they acknowledge these dark sides, they can use them as a catalyst for growth. The snake's ability to plan and protect can be channeled into creating a safe space where the goat feels secure enough to express their full self. The goat's empathy and openness can help the snake lower their guard and embrace a more collaborative, less controlling dynamic. The work is not easy, but for a pair that thrives on both challenge and connection, it is entirely within reach. In the end, the shadows in this relationship are not a sentence, they are a signal. They illuminate the points where trust must be built, boundaries must be honored, and both partners must be willing to step outside their comfort zones. By addressing these dark sides head-on, Aries Snake and Sagittarius Goat can turn potential pitfalls into powerful lessons, ensuring that the same intensity that could divide them becomes the very force that deepens their bond. Life goals. Their life goals can align beautifully, but only if Aries Snake and Sagittarius Goat are willing to dig deep into understanding each other's motivations, values, and long-term visions. Beneath their surface-level differences lies the potential to create a shared path that is both meaningful and enduring, but achieving that requires ongoing awareness and an acceptance of their fundamentally distinct approaches to ambition and fulfillment. The Aries Snake tends to define their life goals in terms of achievement, stability, and legacy. They have a deep-seated need to know that their time on Earth has produced something of lasting value, whether it's a successful business, a respected reputation, or a tangible contribution to their community or family. For them, life is a series of strategic moves toward a well-constructed future, and every decision they make is weighed against its potential to bring them closer to that vision. They are driven not just by the desire for success, but by the satisfaction of knowing they've built something that can stand the test of time. Influence and security are not luxuries to them, they are essential markers of a life well lived. The Sagittarius Goat, by contrast, approaches life goals through the lens of experience, self-expression, and authenticity. They care far less about external titles or traditional definitions of success and far more about whether they feel alive and true to themselves along the way. While they can appreciate the concept of legacy, they are more focused on the present moment, on traveling to places that inspire them, pursuing creative endeavors that bring joy, and fostering relationships that feel genuine and nourishing. For the goat, life goals are about the journey, not just the destination. They measure their success not in accolades or possessions but in the richness of their lived experiences. When these two collaborate on life planning, there is a remarkable opportunity for mutual growth. The Aries Snake can help the goat take their often abstract dreams and give them structure, transforming visions into actionable steps that can lead to tangible results. This guidance can prevent the goat from drifting aimlessly or abandoning projects before they have a chance to flourish. The goat, in turn, can help the snake loosen their grip on control, reminding them that life's value isn't only in the endgame but also in the beauty of the process. Through the goat's influence, the snake can discover that joy and spontaneity are not distractions from success but vital components of a balanced, fulfilling existence. However, if they fail to acknowledge or respect each other's priorities, they risk falling into a pattern of living parallel lives rather than a truly shared one. The snake, with their focus on long-term goals, may become frustrated by what they see as the goat's lack of discipline or tendency to change direction midstream. The goat, in turn, may feel stifled by the snake's insistence on sticking to the plan, interpreting it as a lack of openness to new possibilities. Over time, these frustrations can widen the gap between them, leading to a situation where they support each other in name but not in practice. The challenge, then, is to create a vision of the future that incorporates both of their values. For example, they might agree on a shared goal, such as building a business, raising a family, or creating a shared home base, but allow for regular intervals of exploration, travel, or creative projects that satisfy the goat's need for variety. The snake can take comfort in knowing that the core structure is stable, while the goat can take comfort in knowing that the plan still allows for freedom and fresh experiences. Another important aspect of aligning their life goals is defining what success means to each of them in concrete, personal terms. For the snake, it might mean financial security, a respected professional reputation, or a network of influential connections. For the goat, it might mean creative freedom, the ability to live without rigid constraints, or the cultivation of deep personal relationships. When these definitions are openly discussed, it becomes easier to identify areas of overlap and to craft a roadmap that honors both visions. The most successful Aries Snake Sagittarius Goat partnerships are those in which both partners are willing to adapt, not by abandoning their core values, but by finding ways to weave them together. The snake learns that flexibility can be a strength, not a threat, and that embracing moments of unplanned joy can enrich even the most carefully constructed life plan. The goat learns that structure can be liberating when it provides a stable foundation from which to explore, and that some degree of long-term thinking can protect their freedom rather than diminish it. Ultimately, when they approach their life goals as collaborators rather than competitors, they can create a shared future that is both grounded and inspiring. Together, they have the potential to build something that satisfies the snake's desire for legacy and the goat's hunger for authenticity, a life that is secure without being stagnant, adventurous without being chaotic, and deeply meaningful to them both. In this way, their differing visions don't divide them, they become the very reason their shared journey is richer than it could ever be alone. Final conclusions. The Aries Snake and Sagittarius Goat compatibility is, at its core, a fascinating study in contrasts that can, when managed with care, become a profound and enduring union. This is a relationship that blends the sharp, strategic intellect and discipline of the snake with the warm, idealistic vision and emotional generosity of the goat. It is a meeting of two fire signs who share a restless energy for life yet interpret that energy in remarkably different ways. For the Aries snake, life is a carefully considered series of moves on a chessboard, each step calculated to protect their interests and advance their long-term plans. For the Sagittarius goat, life is a canvas to be filled with color, creativity, and unplanned adventure, where meaning is often found in the moment rather than in a distant goal. At their very best, they form an inspiring team. The snake's ability to see the big picture, anticipate problems, and maintain focus complements the goat's natural warmth, empathy, and imaginative spark. In such moments, the snake becomes the steady anchor that allows the goat to dream even bigger, while the goat becomes the bright light that encourages the snake to step outside their rigid comfort zone and embrace a more fluid, joyful approach to living. These partnerships, when they work, can become powerful examples of how opposites do not just attract, they actively transform one another. But at their worst, they can get locked into an exhausting push and pull of control versus freedom. The snake's instinct to direct, manage, and contain the relationship's path can leave the goat feeling caged and emotionally stifled. Meanwhile, the goat's tendency to wander, change course, or prioritize inspiration over structure can trigger the snake's fear of instability, prompting them to tighten their grip. Without intervention, this dynamic can lead to a cycle of tension in which both feel misunderstood. The snake believes they are offering protection and leadership, while the goat believes they are defending their independence and emotional authenticity. What this relationship demands, therefore, is a steady commitment to patience, open communication, and mutual adaptation. It cannot thrive on the fantasy that one partner will eventually mold the other into their own image. The snake will never become entirely unstructured and free-floating, nor will the goat ever be content with a life that is all rules and no spontaneity. The goal is not transformation of the other, but mutual enrichment, learning to see the value in differences rather than perceiving them as threats. The real key to their success lies in celebrating the very traits that initially create friction. The snake can admire the goat's openness and capacity for joy as a source of vitality, a reminder that life is meant to be lived, not just planned. The goat can respect the snake's discipline and foresight as acts of care rather than control, recognizing that stability does not inherently mean confinement. This shift in perspective allows them to stop reacting defensively to each other's core traits and start embracing them as complementary strengths. Freedom balanced with responsibility becomes the heart of their dynamic. The goat must have the space to explore ideas, pursue adventures, and maintain personal individuality without fear of being reined in at every turn. The snake must feel that the structure they build is valued, that their careful guidance is not being dismissed as needless rigidity. This balance can be delicate, but when they get it right, it creates a living partnership in which both feel secure and liberated at the same time. Over time, when love is supported by mutual respect, this connection can evolve into something far greater than either might have imagined in the early stages. They are capable of building a shared life that is not only functional but deeply satisfying, one that grows richer with age because it is fueled by both stability and a constant influx of new experiences. The snake finds joy in watching the goat's dreams take shape, and the goat finds comfort in knowing that those dreams are supported by a partner who is invested in their long-term success. This is not a love story defined by perfection or the absence of conflict. It is defined by the willingness to return to the table again and again, to keep learning how to honor the other's nature while remaining true to one's own. It is about seeing the relationship not as a finished structure, but as an ongoing creation, one shaped by shared experiences, mutual adjustments, and the deep satisfaction of growing together without erasing individuality. In the end, Aries Snake and Sagittarius Goat can indeed have it all: passion without chaos, stability without stagnation, individuality without isolation. When they meet each challenge with curiosity instead of resistance, and when they recognize that their differences are not obstacles but the very elements that make their connection unique, they can create a relationship in which both feel seen, valued, and free to be exactly who they are. And in that rare space, where discipline meets vision, and freedom meets loyalty, they may discover not just compatibility, but a truly enduring love.